Welcome everybody, this is your host, Sister Ruth, and this is ChaosCast Ep2, and we are looking at the week of the 23rd of September, leading up to the time that we are expecting to see that great sign in the sky. I'm going to be looking at everything that's going on with the storms, and we're going to be looking at the UN, who just happened to be meeting this week in New York, and talking about what they are up to there. There's a clip I want to play you from a video where President Trump was speaking to them as he arrived at the meeting there just a short while ago. It's currently 6:15 in the evening here in the UK on Monday the 18th of September. This is the Venture Sky projection for the wind speeds, and this here is Hurricane Jose. You can see it's just off here. The wind's beginning to scrape the it's probably around Richmond, Virginia kind of area possibly, but you're just on the edge of it. Possibly some rough seas there, but it seems to be staying off the coast at the moment. So we're going to start with this, and because I do want to give you guys a heads up as to where this thing is going, and also Maria, which is going to be following along shortly behind. So this is, as I say, right now, go forward till tomorrow. And you see it's there, so it's moved further into the bay. It's going to be affecting pretty much the whole area between New York and Virginia, so quite a wide stretch of coastline that's going to be affected. So watch out for storm surge, watch out for riptides, watch out for basically flooding. I think water is going to be more the problem with this thing than wind. The wind speed's fairly low, 61 miles sustained, so it's only a category 1, but do be aware if you are along the coastline. Moving forward to Wednesday the 20th, and you see the problem we're going to have with this thing is it's just going to hang there in this bay area or virtually all week. It's just going to hang there for days. Storms don't normally do this. They kind of move on. They come ashore, make landfall and move on. This is one of those that's going to lurk like Harvey did. Just going to lurk like a bad headache off the coast of New York, which is very interesting with the UN meetings happening there this week. It kind of reminds me, if you've ever watched horror movies and something really ominous is going on, and you've always got a thunderstorm going on in the background, this is your thunderstorm in the background. That's how I feel about it. It's your thunderstorm in the background of what's going on there in the UN building. And I'll show you why I said that shortly. But again, I think water, storm surge, flooding, kind of over zoomed in there. It was interesting. There's going to be more your issue than wind speed as far as Jose goes. Let me just get my computer to behave and go back to a sensible view of the coastline. Zoom out a little bit more. So yeah, you can see there Philadelphia, Baltimore, all those coastline areas. Do be aware that this thing is going to be lurking off your coastline virtually all week. Okay, that's slightly better. And you can see there down the bottom of the screen here, in the middle, this is Maria. Lee seems to have fizzled out. Lee, I do not think is going to be a problem. So step forward to Thursday. Thursday, of course, is the International Day of Peace. And the theme for this year, if you were unaware, is peace and safety for all. Yeah, when you hear them say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come. That is what scripture says. Peace and safety. I'm going to show you some more stuff relating to the UN as well, but that just found that rather curious. So anyway, let's get back to Venture Sky and go on to Friday the 22nd. So you see Jose still lurking there in the bay. That has been there for the full week now. It's moved slightly north, so it's now going to be affecting Boston and Massachusetts areas. But it's still lurking there like a bad headache that just won't go away. And here comes Maria. Maria is a different kettle of fish. It has really strong winds there. You can see the dark red colour. That's winds of 80 or 90 miles or above per hour. Going in on to Saturday the 23rd. Jose again still hanging there just off the coast of New York as Maria makes her way up to meet him. The 24th, now you've got Maria pushing towards Florida. That's going to be bad news for anybody on that east coast of Florida, as she could bring some storm surge with her, some more flooding there potentially. Obviously now we're getting more than 5 days out, so these models are less accurate. Up to 5 days the GFS model is usually pretty good, but after 5 days all the models start to deteriorate in the accuracy, because you cannot predict what these things are going to do necessarily, as we saw with Irma, where it did that last minute jig where it decided to come up or it was potentially steered one way or the other, what came up the west coast instead of the east coast that everybody had prepared for, and then it did once it made landfall, it then jigged inland to the Everglades, which nobody seemed to be expecting. So this thing, it does look potentially, again, heads up you guys around the Jacksonville area. I know you guys got hit hard with Irma, but there could be some more coming your way from Irma. And Irma does have strong winds in the centre, but again it looks at the moment as though it's mostly staying offshore, so flooding likely to be more of the problem than the winds themselves. Jose by a Monday has thankfully started to dwindle off. You see the little remnant of it there. Nothing to worry about anymore. Maria's your next problem. And then on the 27th it looks like it might be possibly heading into, I believe that would be maybe North Carolina, possibly Virginia. But as I say, at that point it is very uncertain, because it is a good 8 days out, 8-9 days away, so that could well change. So I'm going to show you the cone of uncertainty for Jose, and again you can see how that is going to come in and just hang. Actually that might be Maria, bear with me a moment. Bear with me a moment, guys. No, that is Jose, because he's further north than Maria. Maria's not going to come that far north. So, again, he's just going to hang there all week off the coast. So that could be really bad news for shipping, trying to get in and out of New York. That's going to be a problem. Again, potentially storm surge. Water's probably going to be more of the problem than wind speed with both of these things. Although, if Maria does make landfall, Maria does have the potential for strong winds when it comes in on this North and South Carolina area, if that is where it ends up going. I'm going to show you. This is the spaghetti models for Jose. You can see, again, remember this is the track of the eye. The same with this thing here. This is where the eye is likely to be with these cones of uncertainty. The actual outer wall of the storm could be much wider depending on how big the storm is. So this is where the eye could be. So at the moment it shows it dissipating by Wednesday to a tropical storm, but it is going to lurk there. Okay, so it's going to be bad news for you guys all week. I'm going to bring up the cone for Maria, which I'm sure I had open, but I must have accidentally reused the page for something else. Just bear with me. This is a page called spaghettimodels.com, and it has all your little charts and graphs. You can really dig into this data and try and figure out for yourself what's going on, because your mainstream media is probably not going to tell you in time for you to do anything sensible about it. So let's find Maria. Every time I start recording, my computer runs really slowly. You really can't do two things at once. This is Jose. No, it's not going to let me do that. It's oh, here's Maria. Let's just try and open that one up in a new tab. So you can see here, Maria, the spaghetti models all showing coming in and staying offshore and then tracking up towards the Greenland coast. The only question I have is how far in into this area it is going to between the Florida and Virginia. How far into this, how deep into this area it's going to come. And we won't know that for a few days yet. As I say, anything after 5 days, and you cannot be sure what they do change quite often. I wanted to show you as well that we are in for some stormy weather here in the UK. We can expect to see this around the 23rd, if I which kind of seems appropriate. We have all this stormy weather off the west coast of Ireland, and it's also going to be affecting Iceland. This is a huge system. I think this one will be called Brian. We had Aileen last week. So this could make for some interesting crossings across the Irish Sea as we step it forward. Although it does dissipate fairly quickly. So certainly if you are in Ireland, western parts of Scotland, towards the end of the week, you could be in for some rough seas around there. The 23rd, what do I think is going to happen? What I want to do is take a look at Revelations and chapter 12. Most people are trying to claim that this is going to be the rapture, that they're going to be out of here, and that's a very popular opinion because people just kind of don't want to be here where all the bad stuff starts to happen. Which is, I mean, it's been we've been in the birthing pains for a while, and I can understand that point of view, but it's not the way that when I read this scripture, it seems to be more about the dragon, the enemy, and than it is about anything to do with the church. So I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed evangelicals around on the 24th. I do think we will still be here on 24th. Are we actually going to see anything happen in our physical reality? I'm not sure. You have to remember that when this was written, it was in a part of a vision, while the prophet John was saying that he was in the third heaven. So we're seeing all this happening in the heavenlies. How it's going to play out down here, we're not certain. We're not even certain what time scale it's happening over, because what people often don't realise with scripture, particularly with prophecy, there can be thousands of years covered by one chapter. Doesn't all have to happen on the same day. So I'm not saying by any means we're going to see any of this happen on the 23rd, apart from the alignments that Stellarium shows. But then again, even with that, we have to be aware that the only way that we've been able to figure out that this is going to happen this week is using software that has been provided by some people out of NASA. And we all know NASA never gives us a straight answer. We cannot be trusted, are proven liars, and so we must be cautious. For me, this passage is more about the return of the beast and the return of the dragon and the rise of this final beast kingdom than it is anything else. So let's just read through it. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And where there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with the rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God, and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 2,163 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down to you, having great wrath, because he know he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, and times, and for half time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water, as a flood, after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened up her mouth, and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Or Yeshua HaMashiach, if you prefer to use his Hebrew title. So that is from the King James Version, and here's the thing. We know that the first part of the passage actually talks about Yeshua's birth, before he was called up to the heavens. So to say that because we're seeing that in the sky, it means automatically relates to the rapture of the church is a bit of a stretch for me, especially if you consider all the passages that talk about enduring to the end, and the wheat and the tares parable, where it's clearly the wheat and the tares are harvested at the same time. So that's one reason why I'm not a pre-trib rapture person. I do believe that we will be protected. I believe that that is what the promise of the seal is about. But as for us being raptured out of here on Saturday, I'm not sure. Of course, there's part of me that hopes you pre-tribbers are right. And if you are right, I will be the first one there high-fiving you on Saturday. But I'm fully expecting to still be here next week, and I expect things are going to get a whole lot worse, because this beast kingdom is rising. This is a season we are in. It is the rising of the final world government system, and the rising of the person that they refer to as the Antichrist, who will lead that system. Now, could there be a fake rapture on around Saturday? It is possible, if you are familiar with the idea of the alien deception, and I do think that that is the way it's going to go down, where because they've been pushing this ancient alien theory. I believe that when the Anunnaki or the fallen ones return, they will come as alien progenitors, say that they tinkered with an ape species that was here, and that is how we became humans, and they are our creators, and they are here to defend us against a bigger threat that is to come, which of course will be the true Messiah, and that is how you get your war with God at the very end of Revelation. But again, whether that will actually happen or any time soon, I don't know. I think it's too early. I think that will happen when we are on our knees, when they've this chain of events that started with the hurricanes in US is going to get worse. It's going to spread globally. There's going to be massive destruction, massive chaos, to enable them to break our will and get us to the point where we will welcome this one world government with a strong leader, with open arms. That is what I think will happen. That's how it's looking. It's like it's shaping up. And with that in mind, I was trying to figure out what was going on with these hurricanes. And when I was praying on it, I got the word prison. And I'm just going to bring up my little FEMA map here. And I said that I was deeply suspicious, even as soon as Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. Texas was the state I considered most likely to resist any attempt at martial law. And then it's gradually spread around South Carolina. There's no new entries for this week yet to put onto the map. But with these two hurricanes that are coming in, literally anywhere from North Carolina up to Maine could be on this list by the end of the week. You could have FEMA active in all these states, all the way along here, all your major population centres on the East Coast. And what I was shown when I was praying on this, securing the border, basically. See, your north border with Canada, you can build a fence or a wall along there. You can do the same in Mexico. But your ports are more of a problem, especially little fishing communities and that kind of thing. They're harder to control. Think of us here in the UK. We're an island nation. We have coastline all the way around us. It would be impossible to secure all those little bays by any normal means. And so similar with the oil stretches of coastline here. So by creating these natural disasters, they're driving people away from the coast, away from the coastal areas, which will then make it easier to secure to secure your nation's borders. And the feeling I had was that it wasn't to keep out the Russians, it wasn't to keep out the North Koreans or the Chinese, it was to keep Americans in, it was to stop Americans leaving. Remember the words of the angel, forget which chapter of Revelation it is, but Babylon has fallen, come out of her my people. When that happens, they want to stop you leaving. You will not be able to leave. But I also have a feeling that's going to happen globally, and there will be a mass crackdown on movement of people as everything starts to fall apart before the final one world government rises to power. That's how they're going to break our will, is to trap us in our own countries as the society disintegrates. I want to play you now Sorry, excuse me, I've still got the tail end of my cough. I want to play you a clip. Actually, I'm going to play you the whole thing, I think. This is a very short video up on Paul Begley's channel. I do not agree with everything that Pastor Begley says, but this is just a clip that he put up of a televised speech by Donald Trump. So that was President Trump speaking earlier on today as he arrived at the UN meeting. I wanted to highlight a couple of things he said. The first one was about the showing the people the value of the UN. And the second thing I wanted to highlight was what he said later on about going to its core values. Think Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. Now, if you look at the UN Charter, the UN Charter clearly states that the core values of the United Nations is to be a centre for harmonising the actions of the nations and attainment of these common ends. What ends are they? Peace and safety for all. Again, that goes in with the International Peace Day. So I thought, well, let me just have a flick on and see what the meeting schedule is for this week. And when I did that, you can see that this is a 72nd meeting of the United Nations, and we all know how much the occult loves the number 72. 72 and 27 are big numbers that they use. Obviously, if you understand how they flip and reverse numbers, basically the same thing. And also, if 72 plus, if you add the 7 and the 2, you get a 9. Interestingly, on the 26th, we have a high-level plenary meeting to commemorate and promote the International Day for the Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. There was some legislation that was voted on a couple of months ago, where they basically said they wanted a complete ban on any nation having nuclear weapons, and that this is the meeting when they are going to vote on that and actually pass it. So that is very interesting indeed, especially with Kimmy Boom Boom and his threats being pushed in the media. Now, whether he actually does have those capabilities, or whether this is a rinse and repeat of the weapons of mass destruction ready to go in 45 minutes thing we had with Iraq, I'm not sure. I think it's probably the latter. But they are certainly going to milk this for everything it's worth. And what are they going to do? They have something in the pipeline that is going to make everybody coming together and saying, yes, we've got to pass this ban, we've got to get rid of these things. And what do they do? How do they decommission all the weapons, do all the cleanup and that kind of stuff? That sounds like a lot or more of our tax dollars that will be getting spent trying to decommission these things, or allegedly trying to decommission these things if that ban goes through. And so that was interesting. What I also wanted to do, actually I think that was about all I wanted to talk to you about today. So obviously big eyes on the UN. It is lots of meetings happening there during the week. So do keep an eye on their website, keep an eye out for the statements, try and read between the lines of what they're saying. As far as the 23rd goes, I do see that this has more to do with the occult than it does to do with the rapture of the church. Is it possible that this is when the sealing of the 144,000, the remnant, happens? Possibly. Is it possible that this is when the two witnesses appear on the scene? Possibly. But I'm not sure, to be honest, I am not sure that we will notice anything that happens on our level unless they do some major false flag event, something that they've contrived to, because they have been showing the number 923, 923 and also 24 in movies for years. So they have been well aware of this date, this alignment. They have been milking it for everything that it's worth. If you are familiar with the movie clips showing the eclipse, that has that is was certainly in a lot of movies, a lot of symbols in the run up to that event, and they've done the same thing. They did the same thing with 9/11 before anything happened on 9/11. And here's the thing, guys, what they do, they will have put a date out like that, like they did with 2012, so that we all kind of bite onto their little nugget of breadcrumb and say, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to come, the world's going to come crashing down, and nothing happens. And then there'll be something else and nothing will happen, something else and nothing will happen. And what it is, it's desensitizing us, because we're so used to hearing that something's going to happen, everything's going to come to an end. We had the Y2K thing, I've lost count of how many end of the world days I've lived through in my lifetime. but it happens over and over again. Everything's going to come to an end, and it doesn't. Everything carries on as normal. There is a coalescence, to use to coin a term from Anthony Patch. Everything does seem to be coalescing around this autumn period. But as for anything particular happening on any specific date, I am not going to say anything specific. I'm not a date setter. I don't claim to be a prophet. There was an interesting dream that I had, though, which kind of ties into FEMA and the FEMA camps. This was probably about a month ago. I'm going to just... I had a dream where I was in a sports hall. I think it was something like a leisure centre that had been turned into a shelter for victims of some kind of natural disaster that was here in the UK. It wasn't in the States. And I'll tell you, you'll find out in a minute why I brought images of this guy up. I was in a corridor. There was a room at the end of the corridor, and there were people dressed in black discussing something. It was something that people were going to have to do to access the resources of the centre. And then I came out of that corridor and was downstairs with where everybody was waiting, and I knew that whatever they were preparing to do to get everybody to accept before they could access the food and the stuff that they'd had, it was going. Basically, the only way I can describe it is accepting the mark of the beast, and I was refusing. So they sent. There was a really old guy who was a priest, and he had this guy behind him. I think the reason. I mean, my housemate and I have been watching the reruns of the Father Brown TV series. It was a BBC drama set in the 1950s. I think he was put in that dream to show me that it's going to be the clergy from these mainstream churches that have all skedaddled back to Rome that are going to be used in these centres to help persuade Christians to take the mark of the beast. They're going to be don't worry, it's not the microchip. It's what the mark of the beast is, what you do and what you think. It's not the microchip. The microchip's fine. And then there were a group of 3 or 4 women in the area where I was, and they were all wearing headscarves. Not full burqas, just ordinary pretty headscarves. Saying, oh, it's fine, look, we've had ours done. And I was saying, no, I'm not doing it, I'm not taking it. And that was the point where I got carted off to follow these priests into a corner somewhere. So watch out for that, guys. I think that is what that dream was. That's why I am concerned for my brothers and sisters in America with these storms and what is going on with these FEMA camps because of that dream. And that was probably even a couple before Harvey hit that I had that dream. I wasn't going to talk about it in a video, but I think it's appropriate as we go into this week to put that out into the public. So do keep alert, keep vigilant. The other thing that is also going on, just one final thing, is that, I mean, you know, those of you who know me know that I have no faith in NASA whatsoever. But it is interesting to note that as we have this revelation sign happening, as which talks about the dragon and his angels being cast down to earth, there is a long list of potential approaches of asteroids that, or space, what they call space junk, that they are watching. And the one we've all got our eye on is this one here, the one which is scheduled to hit on the 12th, or sorry, not scheduled to hit, but scheduled to make its approach on the 12th. It's going to be close, and they say that it will be within the come in between us and the satellites that they say they have out there. Now, quite what satellites actually are and where they actually are is up for question, but they are calling this a close one. I am expecting them to say we're going to see a light show, but nothing to worry about. And of course, this just happens to be the day after the final Jewish feast of the year that this thing is going to put an appearance in our sky. So it's kind of interesting. Not saying anything's going to happen, but it's something. Watch out for any announcements about light shows in the sky, because it could be important. But as for anything actually happening on the 23rd, I am not sure if anything will physically manifest in this realm. I think it is more of a marker date to let us know what time, what season we are in, that we are seeing the rise of the beast. And if you have an ounce of spirituality in you, you can feel it. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here because I've been rambling for a while. I am going to do my usual thing and end with the blessing, the Aaronic blessing. So if you do not want to hear the Aaronic blessing, you should stop this video now. Please like, subscribe and share. It does help other people to find this information. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you, and give you peace. May Yeshua be with you all.